Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Shaviz, Perek Hey, Halacha Beis. We are actually in the middle of Halacha Beis. We're going to be learning today Daf Lamed Vav. We left off Daf Lamed Vav, Mamish, on top of the Amud, the middle of the Mishnah, and the Mishnah began to speak about the luf onion. We spoke about the issue of being toimen, the onion in the ground on Shviz, and what needs to happen in order for you not to create a maras ayin, that someone should think that you are working the land or you are planting the onion, and we're going to get back to that in the Gemara today. But the Mishnah on the top, now in middle on Daf Lamed Vav, we are starting the new topic of Biur Shviz. Now, let me say a few words of introduction regarding the mitzvah of Biur Shviz. That there comes a certain point during the year of Shviz, generally speaking, when that item that we are looking at, that you already have in your home, in a kosher way, because it's not like you didn't declare your field ownerless. Anyone had the right to take the product. You have apples. You took an apple for yourself as you are allowed. If this item out there in the field is no longer available, it ended, it finished, nigmar, with many more details that really the land of Israel is divided into three medinos. Imagine today the confusion with one medina. We have three medinas, not one. And every region, it's really three regions. And when this item is not available in the field for the animals in that medina, whoever is there no longer is allowed to keep that product in their home. They're obligated to do what we call biur shvi'is. Now we know that when it comes to Pesach, when we use the words biur chametz, it means you have to get rid of it and burn it. Indeed, let me begin today by learning the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Shmita v'Yovel, Perek Zayin, begins telling us about the din of biur shvi'is, like we just mentioned, that when this item is no longer available to the behemoths and to the chayes, so then the Rambam writes, chayiv leva'er oisa hamin min habayis, you have to get rid, you have to destroy that product from your home. V'zehu biur shel perek shvi'is. And now listen to the Rambam. I'm giving the Rambam as an intro because since we will be learning today's Mishnah and the Sugya later on Daf Ayin Zayin, like the Ramban, I don't want to completely, God forbid, ignore Shitas Rambam, who learns everything we're learning now differently. Says the Rambam that Ketzar, how do you do it? So he gives an example that if you have a groiger shel shvius b'steich beisa, if you have dried figs in your house, so when can you have your dried figs? As long as they are figs, in the trees in the field. However, the word mevayid in the Rama means you have to remove them from your house. Okay. Now, what happens if you have a lot of it? No one is saying to destroy it, to burn it, baltashkes. The Rambam says if you have a lot, be machalik it. Give it out to many people, but you have to get rid of it. Then he writes, listen to the words of the Rambam, V'asur le'echol achar habir. After the zman habir, no one can eat of it. Bein la'aniyim, bein la'ashirim. And furthermore, if you have a lot of food and you don't find people to whom to give it to, and each one you're giving how much, mazing shalosh su'udais, says the Rambam, V'im le'matza oichlin, b'shas habir, if you don't find people to eat it, soirev bo'esh, mamish, like chametz, or mashlich layam. By the way, the Rambam also holds that's the way you get rid of chametz. You have that option. Ma'abed b'chol davar shema'abed. At kan shitas Rambam. The Ramban argues with the Rambam, and the Ramban, and this is all based on a Mishnah that we will have in our pagination on Daf Ayin Zayin. This is very important, Chevre. The Rambam's girsa is something that completely different. The Rambam had a different girsa in the Mishnah. The girsa that we have in our Mishnah is the one that's put here into the Gemara. The way we will learn the sugya is that there is a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Both of them are of the opinion, like the Rambam, only up until the point that during the Zman Habir, you have to remove it from your house and you have to declare it ownerless. Now, once you made a declaration of ownerless, everyone, right, according to Rabbi Yossi, bein aniyim, bein ashirim, bein the original owner is allowed to reacquire it. According to the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, after you declared it ownerless, only aniyim are allowed to take it. But according to our girsa, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi hold you don't have to burn it. Biur simply means you have to put it out, get it out of your house, and make a declaration of biur. And then it could be reacquired. Alama machloikes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. This
So it can be a machal behema, right? Can it be a machal behema? Your behema?
That's why the Rambam purposefully gave an example of te'enim and groigeris, which are not considered machal behema. But on the other hand, if you have animals domesticated or wild and they're hungry, they eat what's available. Many people are that way also. If you put something in front of them, they'll eat it. Goes both ways. Anything. If it's there, they eat it. They don't even notice. No self-restraint. That's one of the qualities of a behemoth. Okay, now, what we're going to have right now is the following. We're going to continue to speak about this loof. Like we mentioned, it's a certain type of onion, and you place it in the ground, and in the ground, the bulb grows. You know, the onion. And a side of the bulb that grows in the ground, leaves protrude above the ground. Like we mentioned, both the bulb and the leaves are edible. And we're going to start learning in the Mishnah now what will be the scenario if you have a loof that has leaves on it, and the leaves are both from the Shvi Isir and from the non-Shvi Isir. How is that possible? Yakir, I know I can't hear you, but I know that we're going to have to learn that inside. There's going to be many questions or many different ways of seeing the Metzias. How is that even possible? Let me just say right away, a heads up. The general rule by vegetables is that after learning last whole week, is that you have to know the critical point in the Rosh Hashanah. The Rosh Hashanah for vegetables is Echad B'Tishrei, and the critical point is Bisman Likitosoi Isurei, from when you pick it. So that's what I think he was asking. If you pick the onion on the Shvius here, those leaves and the bulb, it's a Shvius onion. If you left it in the ground and you picked it only on the 8th year, then it's an 8th year. We're going to speak about this when we learn it inside. I know it's very short. It's a very small quantity, but we have enough time to go into that. But we will discover a scenario where the bulb, forget about the bulb is Shvius, but the leaves, some of them belong to the Shvius, some of them belong to the 8th year. And the question is, what do we do with that? You don't know which one is which. All of this will be according to the Ramban's understanding that even after Zman Habir, which will be the case of the Mishnah, you're speaking about eating it on the 8th year, but some of them are from the 7th year. As long as you declared it ownerless, someone can eat it. And according to the Tana Rabbi Yossi, even the original owner can reacquire it and eat it. So we're going to see there's a machlokes in our Mishnah between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua of what needs to happen. And we're going to have a total of 3 approaches, but this won't be today. This is going to be, today we'll have approach number 1. And Daf Lamed Zayin Lamed Beis, God willing, tomorrow we're going to have approach number 2. And 3 in Daf Lamed Ches, on the top, we're going to have approach number 3. There's going to be 3 ways of understanding the meaning behind, the reasonings behind the machlokes that we have in our Mishnah between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Let me just say what they say. Rabbi Eliezer holds that the owner will need to compensate aniyim for the leaves that belong to the 7th year. And according to Rabbi Yoshua, the owner does not have to compensate anyone, and the simplest approach, which will be approach that we'll have today in the Gemara and Daf Lamed Vav Lamed Beis, is the machlokes by us between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua is mamish the same machlokes that we have later on Daf Ayin Zayin Lamed Beis between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that after the Zman Habir, who is allowed to reacquire from Hefker only Aniyim, and since the owner is the one that has all of the loof and the leaves, so he owes financial compensation to the Aniyim. Masha'enkin Rabbi Yossi, who holds that as long as you did the Bir, you declared it ownerless, now anyone can reacquire it. That will be aligned with the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua in our Mishnah, that who cares if the loof has leaves that are from the 7th and the 8th? As long as you did the biur properly, now the owner, if he wants, he can eat all of it up. That will be one topic that we'll have still in the Mishnah, and then we're going to have Vaited concerning the Luf. What's going to happen if you are digging up during the Shvi'is Luf that belongs to the 6th year? Here again, Yakir, what do you mean? Isn't it Bishas Likitosoi Isurai? But again, we'll see there is a Luf that is of the 6th year. You are digging it up on the 7th year. And here the issue will be a Marasayan issue. So even though you are allowed to do it, but how can you do it in a way where no one is going to suspect that you're working the land or you're planting on Shvi'is? And the final ruling of the Mishnah that we are still in the middle of Halacha Beis is going to be about from when is someone allowed to buy a luf after the Shvi'is year, even from a Jew who's nechshat ala Shvi'is. So in other words, we're going to touch upon very big topics, implying that if I want to buy produce in the Holy Land, I have to be careful from whom I buy it from. Al derech, just al derech. Here right now, the whole world, including in LA, after Pesach, being that midrabanan chametz she'avru olav Pesach is asur. So I have an issue now. There are many, unfortunately, people that don't yet know, and therefore they don't yet observe. And there are many chains that are Jewish owned, and they owned chametz on Pesach. They did not do a shtar mechiras chametz. And the same question, like, from when can I buy chametz from their stores? Because there comes a certain time where we can say that whatever they have is new product. Al derech, that will be the final topic of the Mishnah, that normally you have restrictions of how and what to buy from a Jew who is still nechshad, that he doesn't yet keep shviz. How do we apply that to luf? We'll see why luf might be different. That will be the topics of the Mishnah. And as we mentioned already, the opening of the Gemara will be not only going back to the beginning of the Mishnah that we learned on Friday, right, regarding the maras ayin of being toimen the luf, but it's going to be the first approach of understanding the machlokes by us between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. The first approach is we're saying it's the same of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda ben Egeya, what happens after Zman Bir. And it's self-understood again that the Rambam, first of all, he had different girsoos. It has to be that way, that the Rambam's understanding of this part of Biur and what happens after Biur changes completely the way he understands our sugya over here, the way he understands the Mishnah on Daf Ayin Zayin, but we're going to be following the accepted girsa, which is the base of Shitas Ramban, which is, as we spoke out, the way we'll learn the Mishnah. Okay. So let's go. So first of all, says the Holy Mishnah, Luf she'avra olav shviz. So the heichetimtza, the scenario where it's possible that you're going to have a luf. The bulb will belong to the 7th, but there's a possibility that you have a luf that has out of it growing green leaves, that some of them will belong to the 7th, and some of them will belong to the 8th. Now, before we go on, and now we understand the kasha. So what do you do with it? But there's many more details needed. For that to even exist, that can only exist on the 8th year. That's why the Mishnah introduces this case with the luf she'avra olav shviz. Look inside the Marafulda. And she'avra olav shviz, v'nichnasa olav shminis, shumeskayim zman meruba ba'aretz b'mechubar, that these lufs, even after they're ready, they can still stay in the ground without getting ruined. This is interesting. Many natural plants, many fruits, once the fruit is ready, leaving them on the tree in the ground, or grains, after they are ripe for too long, will make them overripe. It's going to be to their detriment. These leaves, that's what he begins. That it doesn't matter how long you leave them in the ground. I know what the Marafulda. I think I'll suggest what he's trying to say with that. But before we do that, I want to read the Pnei Moshe and I want to read the Rasher Elio. Just understand the challenge, Yakir. It's all this challenge of what do you mean? It has. How can it even be? Okay, look inside the Pnei Moshe. Luf she'avra olav shviz, the top, right at the top of Moshe. The nichnas l'shminis, v'hu nizrach koydem shviz. First of all, we're speaking about a luf. Like, you can't plant on the Shemitah year. No, what happened was you planted it on the 6th year. Let's go with the whole thing. And v'hapri shaloi godal tachas ha'aretz. First of all, the bulb goes under the ground. V'ha'alin, the leaves, nidin al ha'aretz. They are visible even while they are growing. V'yesh lahem biur, and we apply the dinim of biur, kidetanan lekamon, Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph, that what? The chol Michael Adam. Or, yeah, that's for you, Yakir. U Michael be'ema. She'enoi miskayim ba'aretz. Yesh lehem biur ula demeim biur. And we're going to see what that means in greater detail when we learn there. So now we are speaking about the 8th year. Obviously, Chavra, we are speaking about the leaves of the 7th year that Zman Biur already passed, because if someone would have picked those leaves at some point, the ones out there in the field are not available anymore. And once that happens, you have to get rid of it by declaring it ownerless.
Rabbi, please say it again.
Yes, I have an onion, and I put the onion in the ground on the 6th year. So first of all, I planted the luf beheter, and the onion was in the ground the entire 7th year. And when it was in the ground the entire 7th year, the bulb became finished, leaves came out, and I didn't pick that one. And since this is a unique product that not only does it not get ruined, but the longer it stays in the ground, more leaves come out. I picked it on the 8th year. Talking about the leaves. Now, and I have the leaves in my home, but now I have leaves that belong to both years. Now it's in winter. In the winter of the 8th year, none of these leaves are found anymore in the field. So what did I do? I take them out of my house. I don't know which one is the 7th, which one is the 8th, and I declare it ownerless because it's Zman Biur. We're going with the sugya that even after it's declared ownerless, now you don't have to burn it. The only question is, I'm already linking it to Rabbi, like we mentioned, to the machlekes we'll have later between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. If you hold that even the original owner can reacquire it, so then the original owner takes all of it back in his house and Shalom Al Yisrael. If the original owner is not allowed to reacquire Peiroi Shvius after Zman Biur, that has to be La'aniyim. So it's not like there's Kedusha in it, like Truma, you have to give to the Kohen. The original owner takes all of the leaves back in the house. He has to estimate how much of it was from the 7th, how much of the 8th, and he'll have to compensate to the Aniyim the value of the Alin that belong to the 7th year. Okay, Len, I want to read these words. We're going to get to the Rashirili in a moment. It's not so simple yet. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, that first of all, don't forget another step back. When you have loofs growing in Holy Land, in the Holy Land, and you have these leaves sticking out during the Shemitah year, just to make it clear, anyone can pick it. So im laktu haniyim olav laktu. No, it's if the leaves were picked during the 7th year, they belong to the aniyim. If the owner harvested, which is what happened here, the bulb on the 8th year, well, the bulb belongs to him. The leaves belong to him. In other words, it's not going to be so common that you're going to have such a metzias that you'll have on it 7th and 8th. Normally, it's 7th, it was picked. 8th, the owner will own it. But the imlav, in other words, the imlav means that if you have this unique scenario, that you have now a picked luf, but the leaves on the luf belong to both years, and it's after the time of the biur. So what should you do? Says Rabbi Eliezer, well, the owner doesn't have to physically give it to the aniyim, but yaseh cheshbon imo aniyim, he has to calculate how much of the leaves of this luf was from the 7th year, even though you can eat it because you fulfilled the biur, but you took it back. But you are not allowed to take it back. It belongs to the aniyim. And that amount of value has to be given to the poor. Rabbi Yeshua says, no. Same thing. Im laktu aniyim es olav laktu. If they took the leaves, good for them, because you did biur. But if when you declared it ownerless, now how long do you have to leave it outside? We'll learn the sugya later, right? But once you did the biur properly, if the aniyim did not pick it, v'im lav, ein la aniyim imay cheshbon, the owner can take it all back and keep it all for himself. Look inside. Look inside the marafulda. So first, a couple of steps. Now, why are we speaking only about the leaves? So first of all, the marafulda tell us that ali aluf yesh lahem beard. Just to know how it works. The leaves are subject to beard. The ikare, the bulb, is not subject to beard. We're going to learn about this later. Okay. Lefikach im loktu animes olav bashvias. If the anim it took the leaves off the ground, loktu. This is the case of the Mishnah Yakir. And what happened? V'nichnasul b'shminis. You left it in the ground. And the luf is a type of onion that not only will it not ruin the leaves that are there, they'll be good. New leaves came out. The godlu ha'alin, new leaves grew, or the same leaf got bigger. That's the reason why the Mishnah speaks about this luf. What's the case will be where you have both. So that Rabbi Eliezer holds, the guy's marafulda, within all the marafulda, Yaseh Cheshben, which means the Yishayir, you should be Mishayir, you should estimate. Kama Godal Mehem B'Shviz, how much of those leaves are Peiroi Shviz, and the Yitan Laniyim. And the marafulda is quoting what we're going to learn today in the Gemara, the first approach of the link between Rabbi Eliezer and later Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, because the Rabbi Eliezer Savik Rabbi Yehuda, Likaman. In our pagination, daf ayin zayin, and therefore you have to compensate them. However, I'm reading in the Marafulda, Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, ein lanim olav cheshbon. Why? Because Rabbi Yeshua holds like Rabbi Yosi. So what? The owner himself is entitled, if he wants, to reacquire that product after the beard, as long as the beard was done properly. So what if you have leaves of the 7th and the 8th? The owner gets to rekeep it if the aniyim did not take it. The biggest problem the obvious problem, that's the big bomb Rashidili over here, and maybe to read some of it inside. On the left column, it's around 13. I think it's 13 or 14 lines from the top. Second word in the line. V'hiksher Rabbeinu Shimshon Zal l'Rabbi Eliezer. Even let's go with Rabbi Eliezer and let's go with Shita Rabbi Yehuda. That only aniyim oichlam achar abiyur. What do you mean? If you left it in the ground and you only picked it on the 8th year, which is what we're saying the case over here is, well, so the whole thing is the 8th. It's the 8th. V'habiyerek ozlinin basa lekita. Bein li'in shviyis, bein li'in meiser, v'imkein hai luf, hanilkat b'shminis, ein olav toira shviyis. So he answers, Rabbeinu Shimshon, v'tiret zal, the Masnisin mighty, listen to what happened. Kigoin de okroi im alav b'soiv shviz. You picked these lufs on the 7th year. Now, picking it on the 7th year, he's adding another detail that we're going to have later in the Mishnah itself. Don't worry, we'll understand the next words. Ve'okro b'ma'aroi fois. We'll leave that for a few lines in the Mishnah. You picked it kedin, and since you picked it on the 7th year, it's a 7th year product. But instead of you taking it home, you left it on the ground. And when you left it on the ground, what happened? It took new roots and new leaves began to grow. I'm reading what he's saying. The chazar and v'nishrash, you didn't even plant it. You just picked it and you left it on the ground. It took new roots. And v'hoisev gidulin b'shminis, and it grew more on the 8th year. So now you have a product, and now you picked it on the 8th year. So now you have a product that has both. Lefikach tzarich lasis cheshbon im aniyim atkan. Let me just share like this, and this is extremely important. And we mentioned this when we started to talk about this topics many daf ago. There's a lot more to say. When we say that by vegetables, basar likitosoi isuroi, there are two ways of understanding it. Aleph, it's from when you actually pick it, or it's from it's ready enough to be picked. And for us to push it, I know on one hand it's a very small daf today, on the other hand we can spend a lot of time talking about it, but we'll have a lot of opportunity to talk about this topic. Just to open it up again. Many understand that basar likitosoi isuroi doesn't mean when you bepoil, when you actually picked it. It means when it's ready to be picked, when it's fully matured. And even though we mentioned that these leaves keep on growing, but since the bulb, that's why I wanted to read the Marafulda, the bulb reaches a stage of maturity where it's not going to grow anymore. And that's it. So once there is a certain point where we say it now is from the 7th year, because it's the time of picking it. And therefore, even if you left, you don't have to say you picked it and you left it on the ground. Even if you left it in the ground, whatever is at the time where it should have been picked, where it's fit to be picked, this is now the critical point. It's after Echad B'Tishrei of the 7th year. It's a product of the 7th year. And this will help us understand the next case in the Mishnah. I'm going from one to the other.
Who are the two opinions of explaining Basar L'Kitasei and how to understand it?
Machlokes Rishonim, Danny. And that's why, you have to just appreciate that Rambam has a whole different understanding of this Mishnah. These are little shtiklach of Mishnah Gemara that, when you learn this properly in yeshiva, it's not so difficult. You have to just learn the daf according to one Rishon. You have to learn it according to another Rishon. It's completely different. But let's go. We have to find one way, and we'll go by it.
And Rabbi, can you just clarify, in general, when it's after the Zman beer,
yes,
that means that, I don't know, let's say I have a field and there's wheat growing. Any can go in there and just harvest it themselves. So they're actually cutting it down.
On the 7th year, even before the Zman Habir. Let's go with grain. Grain, once, if it reached a third after Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tishrei of the 7th year, then anytime anyone can go pick it, not Kederach HaKoitzrim, but the owner and others have equal access to pick a small amount of that product for themselves. This is before Zman Habir. Everyone picked it. I have in my house a pound. Let's say I can pick a pound. I can pick a small amount. You have, it doesn't matter from whose field, it's all the same. Now that it hits Zman Habir, everyone in this Medina has to take this wheat that they have. They have to put it outside their home. They have to declare it ownerless. And now they did biur. When they did it, declared it ownerless, according to the Ramban, it doesn't have to be burnt. Now it could be repossessed. There's a machlokes Tanoim, who could repossess it?
But in terms of what's growing in the field, or whether it's the greens from the onions or anything.
Even before the Zman Habir, it's hefker lakoil. Even before the Zman Habir, if it's product of the 7th year, because it could be it's a product of the 6th year. Like look at the next case in the Mishnah. You can have an onion, Danny, that it was planted in the 6th year. It reached full maturity in the 6th year. Let's go with what I just said, that even though by vegetables, basad, liki, tosoi, isuroi, but if it was fully mature in the 6th year, it's a product of the 6th, which means who is allowed to pick it? Only the owner. It's not peiroi shvius that is available for all. Here now we have a marasayan issue. I'm going into my field on the 7th year, and I'm going to start harvesting onions. I use instruments. People are going to think I'm working the land. That's the next case. So that's luv shalat of shvius. That is going to be classified as a product of the 6th year. Now that you left it in the ground, shenichnas l'shvius, one item in which such a thing is shayach, because most items, like I mentioned, when it's ready to be picked, you will pick it, because if you leave it in the ground, it's going to get ruined. The Gemara will explain what type of onions are p'tzolim haketzonim, and the third product, these are exceptional products. Matter that grows in very good soil. These are matters that were produced for a dye. Look inside the Marafulda, 3 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines under the Gemara. Puashal idis. Idis is idiois. Idios means it's pua, it's matter. Hagedela besada shmeina. And pua is a type of product from which you make a dye. Shekoidim roizia. And the issue, like I mentioned, is only an issue of maras ayin. The item can be picked. So Beis Shammai says you have to pick it with such a big shinoi, everyone will know it's a peda from the 6th year. What is that? That oikrin oisan, we had these words before, and that asherilio b'ma'aroifois or ba'arufois shel eitz. So you have spades. You may not use any metal instrument according to Beis Shammai, because metal instruments is what people use to plow. Even though when people would pick these 3 items, they would use a larger instrument. They would use a metal spade in English. They would not use a small instrument According to Beis Shammai, metal is out. You can only use wood. Beis Hillel, you have to make a shinoi, but it's enough for you to use a kardoim of metal. Since you're not using a metal spade, you're using this type of kardim, it's a different instrument. No one picks these items with a kardim. That's enough of a shinoi for people to know that you're not plowing the field. Doesn't bother Beis Hillel that you're using metal. Beis Shammai is more mach when he says never use metal. Simple. Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. Umoidim, Beis Shammai will be moided to Beis Hillel when it comes to pua shel tzolois. Tzolois means rocky ground. So pua that's growing, what's the thing about rocky ground? What's the maras ayin? People might think that you're plowing the land. No one plants in rocky land. So if the land already is not the derech ha'olam to plant in the land, there's much less maras ayin. So he'll be moidem. Also, there has to be a shinoi. There has to be a shinoi, but it's enough for you to make a shinoi by using the kardoi metal instrument and not the spade metal instrument. Final case in the Mishnah regarding luf, and every single one we're going to revisit in the Gemara. Like we mentioned, this is a big topic now. Don't get nervous. We'll have enough time to finish the Amud. What's the big topic? It's after Shvius. We're speaking about can I buy something from a Jew that is suspect to him working the land of Shvius, when we don't know if this item is of Shvius. If that would be the case, he cannot even sell it. And even if he sells it and you buy it, it's bound to the laws of Shvius. There's Kedusha in it. You can't take it out of the Holy Land. It's subject to Bior and v'chule v'chule. Or is it from the 8th? A Jew is Nachshad ala Shvius, is not Nemon to say it grew on the 8th year. So we have issues and restrictions and sugyas of what to do. From when could you buy it with the chazaka that it grew after the 8th? So says the Mishnah, me'emosai mutar adam likach luv b'matzoi shvis. Again, even from someone who's nachshad, that's the issue. Ala shvis. Here we have a gavaldik statement. Machloikas. Rabbi Yehuda Omer miyad. Look inside the chiddush. A big chiddush. This the marafulda, the first narrow line, right? 5 lines from the top. Miyad. Ay va'afal gav de b'sha'ari yirakois. Moide Rabbi Yehuda to the chachamim of our Mishnah the asur. At sheyase kayotzeboy mamish, the same b'chdei sheyei asu, right? That we have on Matzah Shabbos. Same idea. You can only do it when, anyways, even if it would have, you're not benefiting from it. Beluf here. A guy has luf. You would have to dig it out. I was speaking about luf, guys, that was planted on the 6th year. It's basically what Rabbi Yehuda is saying is that you can buy matzeh shvis. I paid a shvis. No, it could be it's paid a shishish. See, luf can stay in the ground. So hold on. Why is he picking it now? I'll tell you why he's only picking it after shvis. Because even though I'm allowed to eat the luf from the 7th year, if halachically it belongs to the 6th year, since there are limits how I'm going to harvest it, there's nothing wrong for the balabas to say, I'm not going to have to take this type of instrument, that type of instrument. I don't do that. My machinery doesn't have this. It would make sense for everyone to wait until matzeh shvis and to pick. So I can presume it belongs to the 6th year. Gavaldik. And even according to Beis Hillel, who's not so restrictive as Beis Shammai, but Bekardum Mishal Mateches, the Ein Derech La'akre B'Shvius, El Al Deishinoi, that's what we were saying. But Beis Hillel says that you can use Kardoim Mishal Mateches. He's not saying that you can use anything you want. It has to be the non-usual picking instrument. So it's Hilkach, B'Matzoi Shvius, De Lo Shchiach, De Isura Mutamiyad, Hilkach, the isura kama, I think mutar miyad. That's the difference. No, it's a hamshach. Since you can't pick the 6th year properly, normatively, so therefore Rabbi Yehuda says you can have it right away. And I'm allowed to say what I'm buying from this yid that's nechshad ala shvius is peiros shishis. And the chachamim say no such a thing. True that it could have been from the 6th year. It could be a gross from the 7th year. So from when can you buy luf from a yid who's nechshad ala shvius? If someone begins to plant luf on the 8th year, let's say that the first batch of 8th year lufs, I don't know, are ready in Shvat. From the Chodesh Shvat you can buy. Even though it could be that this is also from the 7th, but we don't know that. and he's not benefiting it from it because even if he wouldn't have violated Shvius, he would have had luf right now. That's the Chacham Maimnim. Mishir ba'chadosh.
Is this a dispute in Rive?
We'll see in the Gemara. We'll see in the Gemara then. Okay, now, I just want to remind everyone that even though it's a Gavaldik Mishnah, we started the Mishnah Friday. Just to remind, the first topic of the Mishnah was you have luf of the 6th year. You want to store it in the ground, which is the derech, and the issue is marasayim. So we had over here the machloikas. There were 4. Remember, there were 4 conditions, and 2 out of the 4, Rav Meir was more machmer than the chachamim. So hatoymen esaluf. The Gemara wants to know at kedoin the whole luf. Luf, I get why the latter part of the Mishnah speaks about luf, because luf is a product that you can leave in the ground for a long, long time. But when it comes to hatmana, all vegetables were stored. So what about bitzalim? At kedoin luf. What about bitzalim? Are they subject to the same limitations, or are they different? So Amar Rabbi Yoina, he luf, he bitzalim, same thing. With 4 conditions, machlekes Rav Meir and the Chachamim. Amar Rabbi Yosi said no. Mistabra b'bitzalim afilu pachas mikan muter. You have to make a shinui. You don't need to have those quantities. He doesn't say what will be the quantities. But first of all, why don't you need the same large quantities? Because since the inun shfin, there are 2 opposite ways of learning it. The first way will be the way the Mara Fulda learns it, that the goal, or one of the goals that we had in the Mishnah, was when you pack them, store them while they are packed together, that in itself will help the observer know you're not planting, because when you plant, you separate them. So if that's the goal, a lesser amount, when it comes to the luf, for whatever, for the way they are, Shafran, he says, will be there for smooth. So therefore, you have to have a larger amount for it to be clear that they are packed together. But regular onions, the onions that we know are very smooth, so you can pack them together even closer. They're smooth. So you can pack them together even closer. Even a smaller amount will cover this need of it's clear, it's densely packed together. He doesn't say how much less. Remember the machlokes about the 12 kav, about a third of that. Now the Pnei Moshe learns this Gemara in Gans and Andish. Look inside the Pnei Moshe, it's all the way in the bottom. If you look in the bottom, it's probably 8 lines from the bottom. It's the first line under the Gemara in the Pnei Moshe. No, the 4th condition the Mishnah spoke about is about how much earth do you have to put on top of it. Regular vegetables are so sensitive to people trampling on top of it that if you plant it in any area where people step on, vadai hatmana, you never plant it there. The word shafin doesn't mean smooth. Look inside. The inun shafin says that Pnei Moshe, no, miloshen nishuf beraglei adam or beraglei behema. Koloimer, sheim the shafin miyat sham kishadarsim olav. They get ruined when they are trampled upon. The Mishnah, the words in the Mishnah regarding the 4th condition is that v'toimlai b'makim drisas adam, or there's another girsa there, b'makim drisas b'nei adam. So since regular vegetables are even more sensitive, therefore, you don't need to have that many. The fact that you are planting it b'makim drisas adam is enough for you to cover them out of sign. Let's go back to it. Now, the first case that we had today, luf she'avra l'shvias, machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, and we already spoke this out by heart. So approach number one, says the Gemara, Rabbi Bo, b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. You know what's behind the argument whether you have to compensate the aniyim for the estimated leaves of the 7th year or not? Oh, it's very simple. Asya de Rabbi Yehuda. That's the key over here. Rabbi Yehuda holds that after Zman Habir, L'Ramban, the only ones that can repossess are aniyim. You took everything back. So therefore you have to compensate. Simple. Asya de Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to learn later in our Dafim, Daf Ayin Zayin, who aniyim oichlam only achar Habir. That's Rabbi Yehuda, only the aniyim. Abba yashirim. You can see clearly how the Rambam did not have this gear. So it's not shaykh. The Rambam writes after Zman Habiyur, you got to burn it. Rabbi Yosi Oimer Echad Anim Echad Hashim Achar Habiyur Zok the Gemara. Oh, you know what? I'll stop over here. Okay, it's much as I thought I'll get further. We'll stop over here, guys. This first approach, we're gonna review it. It's going to go in the beginning of Daf Lamed Zayin. Again, Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, there'll be a whole different understanding. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. And on Daf Lamed Ches, we're going to have the final and 3rd approach. God willing, to be continued.
Chodesh Tov, Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh, guys.
A good Chodesh.